Hi, my name is Ian Hankey. This is the furnace that I've built. I'm going to show you how I go about making a tumbler, which is exclusive to Make Southwest. The irons have to be heated up, so they're kind of a red colour at the end before the glass will actually stick to it. Now I'm going to gather the glass and keep turning, and the glass will stick to the front there. So now you have the glass, and it's a kind of runny consistency, rather like treacle. So now that I've kind of just pushed that to the end there, I can start to shape the glass. It's a bit like ceramics, where you have to center clay first before you start. You have to center the glass on the iron. If you do that, when you finally put the bubble and start to blow air through, you'll get an even wall thickness. So now what I'm doing is it's called thumbing, where you put air into the iron, you blow through with your mouth, and you keep your thumb on the end, and hopefully the air inside will actually create the bubble. The air will expand, so it blows. And we're reheating now. This reheating chamber I've designed so there's no burner on it, and it takes time to reheat the glass. Obviously, as you gather and you work, the glass loses its temperature and stops moving. So we need to put heat back into the glass. And there you have, just stretching it out a little bit now, a little bit more air blown in. And now we can carry on putting heat back into it. Blow that a little bit more, a bit bigger, and again just a little bit more heat back into there. So I'm actually using recycled glass here, or upcycled glass. This is commercial waste, and I don't like to kind of leave it overnight to make perfect glass. I like to kind of get the furnace. I'm just going to blow into this rib mold now. It's just putting some lines on the outside. That's just I push in there, and as I come out now, there you have those lines placed into the on the surface of the glass. And now what I need is what's called a neck mark. I'm just going to cut in with my tools. Quite hard, I suppose, just to make that line there. And this is going to enable me to take that off later. It's kind of a weakness that I'm putting in there. It'll become apparent really when we come to finish it off. And now we're just putting some wax on the tools there. The wax makes it easier to work as well. And now another reheat. So I'm using upcycled waste glass, as I say, but it's not going to be perfect. I light the furnace first thing in the morning, and it takes about 3 hours or so before I can actually start work. But the glass is quite bubbly. So these ribs that I've put in there, they do help to take your eye away from the bubbles. Although I find the bubbles quite beautiful, to be honest. But it just actually gives it that uniform structure around the outside when you're looking at it. And it also reminds me of something. It's kind of reminding me of the glasses we had at school when I was a kid. And I really like that. At the moment, we've got a rounded shape in the glory hole there. It's called the glory hole, that reheating chamber, by the way, traditionally through factories. Don't ask me why, but that's what they call it. So as you can see, it's kind of a rounded shape at the moment. So I'm going to need to kind of use my flat board here and make the edges come to a little bit of a kind of flat on the base there, and just a little bit flat on the sides. And it's really the base that I'm looking at here. I'm trying to shape the base, and I'm pushing the inside there as well, because there's going to be a punty put onto this in a minute. And the puntal is a bridging iron, just checking it's the right size. And it needs another reheat. If we don't reheat enough, by the way, this is just going to shatter. If the glass gets too cold, it will break. I want it to break, but in the right place. So at the moment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep that turning in one hand and take another gather. This is a solid, what we call a punty iron, or a pontil iron. I think it's Italian pontil. But it's a bridging iron, basically. What I'm going to do is just leave that there. Keep it moving slightly, but I'm just going to shape this to a point. And it should be hot enough to stick, but I need to stick it to the center of the base. So here we go, put it onto the center there. That's a good eye for this. But you can still adjust it. You can still kind of push down ever so slightly to make sure it's in the center. And now I need to take it off. Now, that line I put in earlier, if I'm really careful here, I can give it a tap and it should come off. Just with the cold edge of my iron, the difference in temperature there. So it's broken. It's a little bit unstable here in that it might shatter. So I'm just going to introduce it into the heat carefully. I'm going to put it straight in because it'll break. So it's just having that knowledge of just a little bit of heat to start with and a little flash. And this, I'm just making sure I'm heated behind that edge as well, which is the coldest part, so it won't crack into the piece. And now just a little kind of flash very quickly, just to kind of even out the temperature. And once I feel as if it's safe, I can reheat the whole thing. And now I can start thinking about heating it up. But before I do that, I'm working on my own. I haven't got an assistant. So what I need to do really is move the iron that's still on my bench. So I'm just waiting till this is stable. And then I can move that iron and put it away into one of the big bins I've got there. And now I can concentrate on finishing the glass. Now this is rare. Nobody really makes tumblers by hand anymore because it takes too long to make any money out of it. But what I'm trying to do here is a sustainable glass workshop with no material costs and eventually no actual fuel costs. Everything's electric except for this furnace, but it could run on methane quite easily. It's designed to run on methane. And if we collect the methane from this farm and the other 120 farms across Dartmoor, which we could do quite easily, we could run this on methane and we can capture the CO2 from the flue as well. But that's another story. Anyway, back to the piece. So I'm putting some heat into the top edge now. The bottom, which I've already shaped, shouldn't change. It shouldn't move at all, but I'm just trying to make it molten where that hole is at the top, the rim, where it's come and broken off from the blowing iron. So now it's kind of nice and hot there, and I can get my tools inside. See, the hole's quite small. If I'm quite quick, I can start to open that out. But it chills really quickly, so that's all I can do. It won't move any more than that really, so I'm just tidying it up a bit, making it a bit flatter, and now back into the heat. So there's no burner on this glory hole. Basically what I've done is I've strapped it to the side of the furnace, and when you take the front off, like the front cover off, the furnace goes up 40 degrees because oxygen comes into this little hole, feeds into the combustion chamber, and actually makes the furnace more efficient, and it goes up hotter as well. So it's not costing me anything to have this extra little heating chamber, but it's really nice to have the right size because it's putting the heat exactly where I want it, just on the rim and nowhere else. So hopefully this should be enough to be able to just finish off the glass. And I have to remember to flash the whole thing occasionally, otherwise the base gets too cold and the whole thing will shatter. So now I sit back at the bench and open this up and finish it off. So I need to make sure it's a nice straight side and the edge is nice and flat. And then it's final little touch to make sure it's round, and that's the glass finished. There you have it. You can see inside those ribs that were put in. But of course it's still stuck to this iron, so we have to take it off. So I have to give it a quick flash all over, just so it doesn't shatter. And I'm going to use a knife actually to tap around the edge of this stick-on. I pointed it up, if you remember, and so it should come off if I tap all the way around. If you get this right, it should come off. And there it is. But it's sharp. So what I've got to do now is just heat up the end, and that will melt that pontil. Now it's really rare to have a glass like this hand finished with a pontil mark. That's what gives it its value actually, that pontil mark. And now I have to put it in a kiln. Now this is called a leer. It's a kiln, but basically a glass will have to be annealed properly to make it safe. So it goes in here all the glass goes in, and overnight it's annealed so it's cold in the morning and it takes all the stress out. And that's our tumbler complete.